Hello, folks. Welcome to Business Spotlight. My guest today has had 23 years in the Air Force, and he now runs two businesses where he continues to support and deliver complex projects in the defense sector. I'm delighted to be joined today by my fantastic guest, the brilliant Tony Reeves. Tony, it's good to see you. Thank you so much for joining.
Thanks, Mark. Wow, what an intro.
I can't wait to tell this story because it's a really, really good one. And you've got two businesses that you're running. Can you share the story behind how you got into all of this in the first place?
Yeah, absolutely. So we started with Level 7 Expertise, which we started from scratch about 7.5 years ago, after about 7 or 8 years in defense. And I found that I was just behaving like a consultant, just in bigger companies, and got to the point where we really wanted to do things our own way. I felt that I needed flexibility, less process, agility, speed, and interesting projects. And my wife always says that if Tony's happy and on an interesting project, then life is better. So fast forward 7 years, Level 7 has been, I'd like to say, fairly successful. We've got a good reputation. We're doing quite well. And the big change for us this year has been the incorporation of RJD Technology Limited into our team. We completed the acquisition a month ago. Very, very excited. It's an absolute stellar team. The array of talent is incredible. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how these two businesses work together over the coming years.
Fantastic. Yeah. And actually, do you know what? Most business owners or most entrepreneurs start off, they think that the route is all about starting a business and they think they'll never get around to acquiring one. You've reached that, but that's the fastest way into a market, right, is to buy one. What challenges have you had to overcome both from starting a business and now integrating an acquisition?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I think for us, it really boils down to two things. It's around fostering the right partnerships, and then having enough of the right resource and the right, in our world, we call it SQEP, so suitably qualified and experienced personnel. To look at partners, we've actively hunted out bigger organizations that have the sorts of problems and sorts of projects that we can help with. And in doing so, we're known as the firemen. We walk towards the fire rather than running away from it. That's becoming our reputation. And the more we do that, the more that those relationships are reinforced. And of course, in order to do that, you've got to have the right people with the right skills and the right attitude. I'm a firm believer in that if you have the right attitude and behaviors and culture, then skills can be trained. But you've got to start with the right sort of people. And a personal challenge for me is firstly trying to identify those characteristics, but secondly, finding more of the people that will fit in our business.
So hiring on attitude, not on skill. You're working in a really complex sector. The defense sector is notoriously complicated, and for a lot of people, they probably don't understand it, or they probably shy away because they think they don't understand it. How do you foster innovation and creativity within your sector?
It is interesting, and in some ways, it goes back to those relationships and where we fit in. But I think fundamentally, the sorts of projects that we can help with require our team to think through, around, find ways of improvising, adapting, and overcoming challenges. And it can be anything from helping big organizations set international campaign strategy, which I've personally done, all the way down to clambering under floorboards, pulling cables, and asking the analyst that's sitting at the desk, is your monitor moving as I'm pulling the cable, making sure we've got the right one. And I've done that too, and being prepared to roll your sleeves up. Again, it funnels straight back to that culture piece, in that if you've got the right attitude and you're quite prepared to do the things that you need to do, then that's an innovative behavior of itself, is thinking through and around and over.
It's been an interesting journey that you've had, both from a startup point of view and managing acquisitions. Can you share any pivotal moments or decisions that you've taken that have significantly impacted on the growth of the businesses?
Yeah, so there's two really that I really want to talk about. The first one happened around 6 years ago with Level 7 Expertise, in that I could see a change in the market coming, and I felt that we really needed to be partnered up with a strong defense prime that had the right culture and behaviors and ethos themselves that we felt that we could work with, but would also be involved in the sorts of projects where our help would make sense. And it had to be things where a natural edge, some complexity, pushing the boundaries and the envelopes of what's possible, and being prepared to be bold. So we've got a very strong relationship with a big defence prime, and that's worked extremely well for us. Noting that the cascade of money is usually big to small, but we exhibit the right behaviours. We try and be the strongest partner we can be, not only in delivery but across their entire portfolio, to try and reinforce that relationship, to make sure that it is bilateral as possible. The second decision really was around 8 months ago, where we were approached by the previous owners of RJD Technology, a company that we've known for 15 years, perhaps, since I left the Air Force, and who we've worked with a number of times. We really like them. We really like the people involved and the previous owners. And they asked us outright if we would be prepared to consider taking the company on. And my wife and I looked at it at that point and decided that if we didn't do this now, we never would. So we foster an attitude of being bold in our teams, and it was almost physician heal thyself. So if we tell our teams to be bold, well, we should be bold too. And that was our bold moment. And it came to fruition a month ago, where RJD joined our team.
So 2 great success stories there, but I'm sure it's not all been a bed of roses, Tony. Some things will have gone wrong along the way. How do you handle failure and setback, and what lessons have you learned from them?
I'm quite a reflective person, and I take these things, I take the performance of our company very seriously, whilst we try and have fun, but also quite personally. You could say that's a good thing or a bad thing, but it feels like it's my reputation, my responsibility if things don't go well. And I can point at one project that didn't go well around 18 months ago. It was evident it wasn't going well, and no matter how hard we tried, between myself and our other team members, we just could not turn this project, and it was evident that it was not going to complete in the way that we would like. It got quite stressful, and I personally lost sleep. And when I got to the point of executing the decision to withdraw us from the contract, and then it became about a staged exit and relationship management and protecting everybody's reputations and so on. When I look back on that, when the dust had settled a couple of weeks later, I really should have made a swifter decision. I knew the decision that needed to be made, and I think I shied away from it a little bit in order to keep trying to do our best. There must be a way that we can turn this, but in my heart, I knew that we couldn't. So it felt, the one big learning point for me out of that was, be prepared to be swifter. Be prepared to cut these things a little sooner. If it's not going well and it's evident that it won't turn, then the swift decision helps everybody. And it's not just about protecting us, but it helps the customer. If they can see it's not going well, and if you really feel you have to, as long as you've got the right relationships in place, you can have the conversations and almost part as friends. I'm not sure we quite got there, but we did our best.
So being willing to face up and take the tough decisions faster. You mentioned there, you're a busy guy. You're running 2 businesses. You've got quite a big team now. You've got a family too that you've talked about, and you just mentioned sleepless nights. How do you maintain a work-life balance, Tony, as an entrepreneur, and what strategies do you use to avoid burnout?
Yeah, good question. I love these questions today. Mark, you're really on this. I think there's a few things. I mean, firstly, ensuring that you're doing all the right things in terms of sleep and eating well and investing in your social relationships and so on. It's very easy that the business can be all-encompassing. And someone said to me quite a long time ago that the business is here to support the lifestyle that you would like. You're not here to support the business. And that stayed with me. That was a workshop I was in 7 years ago when we first started the business, with the local enterprise partnership. Really interesting. And then the other thing is absolutely scheduling in those things that are important to you. I'm known as a bit of a parkrun evangelist. We've got a local parkrun team at Huntingdon Parkrun, and we travel a lot and tour around the country. And we absolutely schedule parkrun in every Saturday. And even if we're driving somewhere new, we like to explore, we like to meet new people. And it's not just about the run. There's the exercise aspect to it, but there's also the social aspect afterwards, and meeting new people and seeing a new place. And that is absolutely locked in our diaries for probably 45 weekends out of the year. And I think that's a big defense for me. It's a big buffer between me and the tensions and the pressures of the business. It's an area that the business doesn't impinge on, and I can just be me, which is great.
Yeah, it's really important to keep in mind. And I think Brad Sugars, the founder of Action Coach, has a great line, and he says, being in business should give you more life. And a lot of people lose sight of that. A lot of people think that they're there to serve their business, but actually the business is there to serve them and give them a better quality of life. Your business is doing really well, both of them. Can you tell me a little bit about, you mentioned relationships earlier and choosing the right customers. Could you share with the audience a little bit about how you're growing that business, what growth strategies you're using, and what's working well for you?
Yeah, and I think this boils down to understanding what the business is for, what you need it to do, both for you and for the employees and for your circle of associates and all those people that orbit your particular business. If you understand what it's for, then it tells you what it should be doing, how you should be growing. Are you high growth, high acceleration, go as fast as we can, everybody's got the chips on the table pushed into the middle, or is it something else? We're certainly not the high growth thing. We've grown in level 7. We grew organically really over the first 3 or 4 years, and then founded upon that strategic decision. We've gone from success to success over the remaining 4 years since then. Founded upon relationships and finding the right sorts of people, right sorts of problems, the right sorts of projects within these organizations, but also being prepared to be involved in tough, multi-year, multi-million big projects with a lot of complexity, and being involved in things that the typical SME might not necessarily be willing to stick their hand into the mangle almost. So that's worked really well for us. And fundamentally, it boils down to the relationships that you have. They have to be multidimensional. You can't all be vested in one, because the risk to you if that person leaves the business, goes somewhere else, that's significant. But the initial conversations and the relationship that you have in place to be able to foster that, then followed up by really, really strong delivery with teams that become recognized as being significant experts in their field. And we've got a number of those. Those guys do amazing work. I'm so proud of them. And that's why our customers come back to us. With a little bit on top of things like agility, decisiveness, speed, domain insight, being able to get things done when other organizations can't, finding ways around, over and under things. So that's our kind of secret sauce, really. And I don't think it's very secret, but it absolutely works.
Well, you just mentioned domain insight there. The defense sector is notoriously complex. How on earth do you stay up to date with the latest trends and technologies to make sure that you're remaining competitive?
Again, really good question. I think the best example we can use is our work in drones and counter drones. And that isn't the principal area of our business, but it's one thing that we do quite a lot of. And some interesting organizations come and talk to us about that. You have to firstly pick out the noise, the truth from the noise. And if I was at the big defense show in London this week, looking at all these amazing concepts for drones, and 50% of them probably will never fly. They're plastic models, and so on. But a lot of people are talking about it. And then understanding what's actually delivering some real value. And we can look at Ukraine and see what's happening on the battlefield in Ukraine, where you have a real mix of capabilities, where soldiers are using something that might be $300 from a store, equipping them with droppable grenades and having a battlefield effect, and achieving something tactically with a $300 device that you might not be able to achieve with a $300,000 device or a $3 million device, and understanding where those things fit. So picking out the truth and the nuggets and all of that, understanding what makes operational tactical sense, understanding how that might fit into a wider picture. And that goes right back to our whole point about understanding complexity. And one of the things we do well is looking at maps of varying scales, virtual maps, and being able to say, okay, I understand this landscape. I understand the thing that I'm looking at, and being able to pull the right levers in order to enact some positive outcome. And be it in an IT sense, be it programmatically, be it technically, or be it even defending our own systems. That's what our guys are good at.
You've had a fantastic journey, Tony. You've had 23 years in the military. You've had 7 years of establishing a startup. That's not easy. And you've gone through an acquisition, something that many entrepreneurs aspire to and never achieve. So it's a brilliant story, and there's a lot of experience in there. What words of wisdom would you share with other aspiring entrepreneurs who are looking to go on a similar journey as you?
Yeah, I've thought long and hard about this one. We've done some work with local schools. We've done business management, some educational programs with a couple of local schools. We've done some STEM work, promoting of science, technology, and engineering. And it comes back to me for a couple of things. I come from a council house background, into the military, was commissioned, and now own a couple of businesses. And I don't say those things lightly. And I have heard in my time, you can't possibly do that because, or someone having an expectation on you because of your background, ethnicity, social class, any of those things, any kind of defining feature. And my advice to anyone, and particularly entrepreneurs, particularly young people, is don't listen. When somebody says something like that to you, you can't possibly, because that's the moment where you put your fingers in your ears and you say, I absolutely can. I want to do this. I'm going to be successful. And it might be painful. It might be a tough journey. You might meet obstacles on the way. If you don't, it would be really unusual if you didn't meet those obstacles. But the thing for me is, I think we're here because of my inability to listen sometimes, and just flat refusal and stubbornness to say, do you know what, I think I'm right. And when somebody says you can't do it, find a way to do it, to get it done.
Have the confidence to back yourself. That's absolutely brilliant advice, Tony. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story. It's been brilliant to hear it.
Thanks, Mark. Been really, really good. And thanks for the engagement. Really appreciate this. And hopefully there's one or two things in the last half an hour that will be useful to our audience.
Folks, if you'd like to find out more, if you'd like to come and be a guest on Business Spotlight in the way that Tony has just done, we'd love to hear from you. Just comment apply below and we'll be in touch. Until next time, bye for now.